Hello, everybody, and good day. Just to introduce myself, my role is very much to look at the design management aspects of our in-person events and look at how we can meet the expectations of integrating health and safety into our stand design and on-site behavior. We talk about all secure, and what does that mean to you guys? This is an industry standard that has 10 key principles. And this is looking at the best ways that we can actually implement measures to protect you as our customers whilst you're on site in that in-person event. These do remain dynamic and could change right up to the event, hopefully for the better, obviously reducing the measures and the controls to allow us to be more free in a new normal as we come out of this COVID pandemic. What we've been doing in the background, just to give you some insight into that, is we've been working with the State of Hesse and the Messe Frankfurt to ensure that every implementation and appropriate health and safety standard that we put into place is aligned to the government and authorities and the contingency plans of our venues. And the way that we've approached this is by looking at this through a very strategic commercial and health and safety decision matrix, assessing our risk for the in-person event, preparing to get back to in-person events, and then resuming the operations. What does that mean to you, though, as a customer and a client of ours? I've tried to capture it into 6 key areas for you. We want to optimize your experience by minimizing as much disruption as possible for that in-person experience, by managing the organization flow, to ensure that all the health and safety, that we work together in the health and safety of us all on site. When we talk about design, yes, we're talking about stand design. One recommendation I would put to you would be to keep your design as simple as possible and maximize your open space. We have social distancing to factor into it by law, and by obviously optimizing your open space, you can have more capacity of visitors and in-person experience on that stand at any one time. We do want you to consider the amount of stand elements you put on there. So if you nominally put large products on there and multiple products on there, I would ask you to think about what's critical for your stand, so that you can look at the best way to optimize that. I would also consider thinking about having clearly displayed entry and exit points to allow people to flow on and off so that they can feel comfortable while they're actually engaging with you. And when it comes to physical touch points, if we can minimize those physical touch points, look at other opportunities, whether that be digital, and try and minimize shared equipment. And when we actually move through to more customized designs or space-only designs, one thing I would suggest is the health and safety consultants and the internal technical team are here to support you and your appointed contractors. Engage with us early. If you're unsure about your design and if it's a repeat design from last year, what are the issues that you face? If you're unsure, we're here to help you. Submit your stand design on time. In the exhibitor manual, there is very clear deadlines around when we would expect those designs to be in, to allow us to actually give you a permission to build certificate to ensure when you arrive on site, we know that your plan is within the guidelines of the venue and the State of Hesse. When it comes to materials, we do want to try to look for more prefabricated approaches and try and remove as much of that on-site build from scratch with raw materials as possible. This will also help to reduce the on-site capacity as well and activities that are ongoing. We are launching a sustainability program, which is a soft launch this year to support the ISO certification that Julian mentioned earlier on, and this will become more of a driver into 2022 and onwards. When we look at travel or your travel, please be observant to the travel and the public health guidelines. Look at the travel regulations. Currently, there are travel restrictions in place, and certain risk areas may require 10-day self-quarantine if you are to arrive in Germany. Please be aware of what that means to you from your home countries or source countries. You may be required to be tested for COVID-19 prior to travel, and all persons travelling into Germany by air must present a negative COVID test prior to travel or embarking on their journey. When it comes to build and breakdown, exactly the same measures apply during the build and breakdown as they do during the show. We do ask that physical distancing is maintained by your contractors, but we also want to stress that that does not mean that we want that to supersede safe working practice. If two people need to carry something because of the weight and manual handling, then we do obviously respect that and look for additional controls to be applied during that time. I would ask you to think about, or your appointed contractors to think about scheduling their deliveries so that not everything turns up on time. We're going to be very restricted on time while we're on site. We have the permitted hours. There will be no late working or overnight working of such due to the defogging, cleaning and sanitization every evening of the show floor, and that will be commencing throughout the build, show and breakdown. On arrival, there will be contactless registration. On site, there will only be help desk functionality, so do pre-register prior to the event. Participants, and that will include a self-declaration just to make sure that you can self-assess your own health levels prior to coming on site. We do ask you, when you're at the messe, to think about using all available entrances and exits to minimize your crowd control. We don't want to create hotspots where that could increase any likeliness of transfer of infection, should that be a case for us to factor. When it comes to health and hygiene, we do want to ensure that adequate PPE is available, and we do ask that you make sure it's available for the team that you put on site. And that does include your appointed contractors during the build and breakdown. Face masks are currently mandatory in Germany, and all staff should know how to wear them correctly, remove them, and dispose of them safely. When it comes to hygiene, we do encourage, or we do ask that you follow and encourage others to follow the health and safety advice. There will be multiple hand wash stations to support you and your teams while you're on site with that hygiene aspect, and there will be the venue will be maintaining a regular cleaning regime to support that, as well as having alcohol-based hand sanitizers on all stands. Catering will be through the official venue caterer, and they will be compliant through the local legislation hygiene rules. When it comes to your on-stand activity, I touched on it earlier. If there is opportunity to use technology and digital opportunities, then I would ask you to think about that. That may expand to your electronic brochures and product information rather than actually the physical handouts on site. That doesn't mean you can't have them, but you may need to think about how you present them, i.e. individually sealed rather than just multiple bundles on site. We do want to avoid display products being handled, and ensure that if you have any kind of demonstrations on your stands during the show days, that you think about how you're going to control that audience to make sure that we don't breach any kind of social distancing regulations that we are looking to control while we're on site. When it comes to stand parties, these won't be permitted under any circumstances. We do ask that you look to display clear visual signage and markers and markings to maintain proper distancing, and that includes stand capacity at any time. I do want to call out the food sampling, as I know that this is a large part of your show. Food sampling is allowed, but it should be offered as individual portions. We should not have any kind of buffet or self-service, or self-service is only allowed for food that is pre-packaged. And food and beverages should be provided in closed containers wherever possible. When it comes to actual capacity, and I'm talking about stand capacity, we're going to look at the total visitor numbers at any one time in the hall, but we need your support to make sure that your stands maintain the right number of people based on the size of the stand itself. When it comes to the stand elements and the amount of structure products that you put on that stand, we're going to be assessing how much of that is actually removing open space on your stand. And you can see from the slide here, what I've done is I've actually rated it just by a percentage. I think on average, we've assessed across the region around pre-COVID, stands normally capture about 35 to 40% stand elements. That includes tables and chairs, the structure itself, products, plantage, foliage, etc., etc. Obviously, now that we have a restriction of 1.5 meter social distancing to apply to every stand, this has a massive impact on the amount of people that you can apply at any one time. Again, health and safety consultants of Abraxis will be on hand to help you with this stand design process and help support you through this. From the actual hall side as well, we will be opening up the aisles as much as possible, applying two-way traffic to on our large artery aisles, which will be 5 meter wide, and then there will be narrower aisles, which will be one way, and these will be 3 meters across there. And just to finalise, what I would say to you is to help us recover from the effects and maximise your opportunities on site. Please, I can't stress enough, keeping the design as simple as possible. Reduce the amount of stand elements. Connect the principal contractor with us as early as possible to ensure that there's no surprises on site. Do think about what your stand is there to do. Are you there for meetings? Are you there for visitor engagement, ad hoc visitor engagement? Depending on what your priorities are, may depend on how your stand is shaped to best support what you're trying to get out of being on site. And if you can incorporate digital platforms for your product content and advisement, I can't stress that enough going forward.